In the second half of Camera Creatures, Calamati discusses, among other things, the differences between long takes and montage. He cites the Zapruder film of Kennedy being shot as a key example of a long take. Prominently, he notes that the long take is often perceived to be amateur because of the poorly conceived videos that are present these days. While many attribute the popularity of rapid cutting and montage-style editing to MTV, Calamati cites sources that suggest before the time of audio recording, the average scene time was quite short. Calamati builds towards the notion that the non-linear editing tools that have become popular now allow us to edit this way. Through this, he builds up the point that we act on machines and that we are acted on by machines. Calamati discusses that the long take often has the ethos of being more real, while montage is taken as being less true to the real. He points out examples of long cuts, a favorite of mine being The West Wing, and amateur works like The Blair Witch Project. In film, he notes the threat of the contingent is waiting in just the next frame. Often when watching something happen, we're always waiting for the, "oh, I knew that would happen" moment. With a cut, meaning is brought to the scene. The threat of contingency is removed. As a result, montage might not be as powerful as popularly conceived. Video games make space actionable, which negates montage. First-person shooter games often use subjective long shots to depict action. This kind of shot allows the users a kind of identification with the shot, which is often used to depict the viewpoint of villains. The game Doom has been cited as increasing violence in players. The virtual cam is the opposite of the subjective long shot. This kind of view gives the players agency to work in the landscape. In this way, the player acts upon the environment and the environment can act upon the user. Though this seems to have contingency, the possibilities are coded, which partially limits the permutations of actions. The various procedural rhetorics that a player goes through in a game seem to be the most popular current game orientation system. I found the concept that games start by allowing the player very little agency and increase the agency as the games develop to be illuminating. This is kind of like scaffolding in teaching, right? Calamati refers to procedural rhetorics as the barely there end of an isosceles rhetorical triangle. Ian Bogost opines that the persuasive power of games lies in their blueprints. In this way, the game itself dictates the amounts and kind of agency that a player can exercise. Calamati makes the point that moving in real life isn't more real than moving in a game. The one is in a virtual place, and the other in real life. Both are real happenings. Roderick argues against this, saying that in a virtual environment that the impression of moving is just that, an impression, but ontology is a hard thing to agree on anyway. Bonnie Nardi argues that visual performativity is a necessary component of space. In this way, players have the chance to identify with the experience, and using the game's surrogate vision, by experiencing the digital world, the players create their own autographic experience, which is unique to that space and that time. The metaphor of writing is very striking to me, as Calamati describes the experience of a camera shot where you are being carried through space in a long shot. Then all of a sudden you're in control. You go from being spectator to creator or author. This is a striking moment. Control is important. Cinema to game. As I mentioned earlier, some of the games offer the character more and more agency as the game progresses, and ultimately the idea is that the gamer can identify with the avatar. When I got really into Minecraft, I couldn't help but view the world as blocks, waiting for me to reorganize, to build, or to destroy. While in games like Minecraft the player has a tremendous amount of control over the environment, the procedural rhetorics are still in the blueprints. They're encoded and the player cannot exceed, without hacking, the creator's creation. Having control over the environment does not mean control over the game. Calamati discusses swimming in the bottom of a swimming pool and the detritus on the drain and the effect of the surface from the bottom as a kind of way into entering into the discussion of collage, and the surface is a place for rhythm and optical tricks. He points out that collage exists underwater, away from life-giving air. Though he points out that this view is reductive, he does favor the view of the optical over the notion of the collage. And from the fourth chapter, montage as well. Overall, he's trying to argue that photonic rhetorics are an important part of education and should at least be given consideration within an educational setting. Calamati points to Ulmer's work on electricity and heuretics, and Vitanza's notion of para-rhetoric as ways of considering ideas of invention. The commonality is that both of these ways of thinking have to do with a theory of invention, and rhetoric that it resists becoming a totalized permanent ground of education. Kalamati points out that through these examples that collage can get in the way just as much as it can let through, and that these paralogics can allow novel and subversive ways of creating through meaning and ideas that allow for innovation in what would otherwise be a very stagnant environment. Kalamati seems to hit a crescendo when he suggests that optics invite us deeper into the play of camera techne. But more than that these paralogics resist being reduced to any one path, and instead, as you look up from the pool, there are many different things that can happen, and that the notion of optics is just one way to get there. Kalamati takes as a case study a chess grandmaster who raises his 3 daughters to become chess grand champions through always challenging themselves. In setting up a focused environment and allowing for motivation, this man helped his daughters to become chess masters. The point is that even if you're a nobody, with a sufficient amount of interest, effort, and a reasonable amount of skill, you can achieve tremendous results. While finding this kind of vision can be challenging, Kalamati asserts that camera allow the user the opportunity to re-see the world, to see the world in new ways, to see it in novel ways, just like the chess master. After lots of practice and lots of training, you can't see things the same way. The world acts upon you, and you act upon the world. And in that way, the way that you see the world is changed. It's changed forever.